completely new to the space, right? They may have heard of like the blue chips current, the Bitcoin, the Ethereum, but you're trying to introduce them to this new concept, this new idea, this new chain. What's your, let's say, elevator pitch for PulseChain?
Well, there's a few you could use. I mean, the first thing that always comes to mind when I hear that is, what Richard says all the time: cheaper, faster Ethereum. Cheap transaction fees. Ethereum's I got all these problems and we're going to solve them. To me, I think that's the lowest common denominator. I know a lot of people kind of say that too. Of yes, that's how you get people in the door, but how do you get them? How do you grow the network? How do you get the network effect? How do you get them excited about something? Maybe they don't even know that about Ethereum. Maybe they're like, I don't know, I use Ethereum like once every 6 months to do some transaction. Why do I care about, cheaper transactions? So I think one thing you could use is if you tell people, because if they know what, if they're tracking crypto prices at all, if you say it like, okay, imagine, what if you could buy Ethereum when it first came out? You don't have to say day one, you don't have to say the first year, just when it first came out at some point. And that, I think in their head kind of triggers, whoa, that must be price must be much lower than today, right? It must be, because it went up to like $4,000 or $5,000 at one point. I think, I saw that on the news. So I think just one of the biggest things you can do is just say, hey, how would you like to buy Ethereum at day one? And then maybe they're going to ask, but that's that, this is Ethereum, why PulseChain? Why should I trust that? Why should I put my money in that? And then you could point out, well, look at Hex, look at the chart of that. The founder who did this did the same thing with another project. It's been running, flawless uptime for 3 or 4 years. It did a 10,000x. Why wouldn't PulseChain do the same thing? PulseChain's his second project, which is he's got all those lessons learned, so maybe it's even better. So I think the Ethereum argument's pretty strong. Just the early kind of thing. I think that if they're more nuanced about crypto, maybe you talk about the OA in a positive way. Maybe you're like, in a neutral way, and then you kind of you tell them like why it's a good thing if you believe that. So do you prefer whales just dumping on your head that you will never know or speak to at any point, or do you prefer these benevolent whales, which we've seen in the ecosystem for Hex before, that we know have sacrificed for PulseChain and PulseX as well? And do you prefer them to be there to lock up supply, to keep restaking, or at least, if nothing else, have a long-term time horizon where they're not going to dump on your head on day one? Now, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of whales who do that. It's not like this is a case against PulseChain never dumping. It's just that, hey, we've seen these mega billion-dollar, god whales in the system who seem to have good intentions and have been our best friends so far. So do you like a community who has super rich people in it who don't like to sell? That seems to be good for price. That could be something for maybe the next level of crypto people. And then another one you could use for pretty much anyone is, hey, what kind of coins do you have on Ethereum? All those are going to be copied to PulseChain. You're going to get a free copy on the new network. Now, what they're going to be worth, who knows? Some of them are going to be worth nothing. Some are going to be worth something. But if you got a lot of them, if you're a whale out there and you're getting a free airdrop, maybe you're incentivized to provide liquidity and make sure your token has value on this new network, which seems to have a lot of economic energy behind it, and could propel it to be around for a long time, which networks that are around for a long time, especially with this kind of community, tend to go up and to the right. So the airdrop portion can be used for pretty much anyone. But I think, too, on the just lowest common denominator, one point that I don't think that people make a lot out there is that cheaper, faster transaction fees or cheaper transaction fees, that's to get, it's almost like the carrot. I talk about like airdrops and stuff being the carrot to get you in the project, and may or may not be a good thing. I try to stay away from a lot of airdrops too, just because, again, I want to focus on particular projects in the ecosystem. But the airdrop of all these tokens is the carrot to be like, okay, come over, try it out, see what you think. Now, eventually, though, the transaction fees, we want them to be expensive because that means the network has value. So maybe not in year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but if we are still getting cheap transaction fees in year 5 or 10, that means PulseChain didn't go to the moon, right? Like just by numbers, it means that Pulse isn't, if your transaction fees are still less than a penny a year 2, 3, 4, 5, then you're like, it's not performing as well as the meme, at least. So eventually we want more expensive transaction fees. At first, though, fantastic onboarding opportunity. and point to make, as well as airdrops.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like those points. I really like the idea of showing the history of the community, right? The people involved in Hex are likely the same people involved in PulseChain. You know for sure that the leadership is, you've seen the activity of, how he handles his bag if he controls the OA, or whoever controls the OA. We've seen the activity of the Godwell. So that speaks to the community that you're getting involved in. But then also, in addition to that, you have this big caveat of you don't have to do much. I think that that's probably the issue that I get the most is, you want me to try Aave, you want me to try this new blockchain, but like, what all do I have to do? So kind of reducing some of those steps. Look, your portfolio's already here. That's free money. Come play with it. How much it is, I don't know, but it's there for you to go and give it a try at least.
Well, funny enough, it's so simple. It's confusing because people ask. I've seen it in chat. They're like, "How do I get my free airdrop?" And what do you say to that? You say, "Do nothing." And you're like, "What do you mean? What do you mean do nothing?"
Yeah, where's my claim button?
Yeah, like what? But like, really, where do you go from there? Do you say, "Well, you need to change this thing in your MetaMask"? And they're like, "Oh God, you already lost me MetaMask. I don't know what's So I think that's like a good point of how's the conversation going to go once we get closer to mainnet. Who's going to write that tutorial or that graphic that goes viral on Twitter that shows world's largest free airdrop? Here's exactly what you need to do, and you're not confused over it. So that's some work our community can do. I know it will happen, but that's something that's still a confusing conversation for people. It's so simple, but it gets confusing.
Yeah, as simple as RPC settings, right?
Yeah, RPC. Oh my God, no, don't tell me about it. I don't want to know. I just want my airdrop.
Absolutely. So then the other thing that Richard is creating that we're all super excited about is PulseX. So do you have to, in order to get into PulseX, do you have to start by explaining the difference between centralized exchange and decentralized? Or, are you just more so looking to explain to people that are already in DeFi world and like, hey, it burns? Like what's your pitch for PulseX?
Yeah, that's something that I haven't thought much about as far as because PulseChain is so easy in the way it's like getting an Ethereum early and free airdrop. So at the surface level, that one's easy. PulseX is kind of like, I think so, and this is a good point for just growth and network effect as well, because there's tons of people who they trade tokens on decentralized exchanges. They use Uniswap, they use PancakeSwap, they used 1inch and Sushi and all this stuff, but that's not the general public for crypto. It's not the general crypto people. Those are the DeFi staking people, or the people who really have gotten the weeds and somehow know how to use MetaMask to do all this stuff and all that. The more technical side of it, I guess you would say. So yeah, interesting. The pitch for PulseX, I think you do need to be a more advanced user. If I was talking to somebody about it, I think I would start with PulseChain and then explain that, and then say, and if you're interested in yield farming or like making, how do you explain that to the average person too? I guess that needs some work. If you're interested in making money on your money, there's opportunities to do that with an application called PulseX that's running on PulseChain when it starts. I guess you would go somewhere there. But so that's the general crypto person. That's gonna be a little harder conversation.
Yeah.
But especially if they don't know what Uniswap is, they're like, well, okay, none of this makes any sense to me.
Right.
But if you're going to explain it to a person who knows what Uniswap is, they know what PancakeSwap is, you could just say, hey, at least as of now, the details we have now, things could change. Things aren't out yet, but it seems like PulseX isn't going to change or change much at all, because I don't think Richard wants to delay launch anymore for that. He hasn't signaled that, at least. Fork of PancakeSwap, which is a fork of Uniswap v2, and they added a bunch of yield farming stuff. And then there's like a buy and burn where there's always this pressure. It's manual, by the way. The buy and burn's manual. It's not automatic. It's not in the contract, but it could be automated. There could be bots and stuff doing it for us, but it still needs PLS to run the function. So there's that. So there's maybe a pump middle for PLS too, because you need to do transactions to pull the trigger to do the buy and burn. And then the yield farming aspect too, if they're familiar with how Cake does it, and you get to earn these third-party tokens that will be given away. Essentially, it's like airdrops city. It's kind of like this distribution method for these projects to be like, oh, do yield farming and you can earn these tokens, these special tokens, and then join the pool and earn these limited time tokens, stuff like that. And then there's the LP providing aspect to the really advanced people who know how to do LP positions, where you earn incentive tokens. Some people call them dump tokens or reward tokens, whatever. And then if you hold PLSX, those holders can vote on which liquidity pools get to earn those different incentive tokens too. So there's a lot of gamification within PulseX of the different ways to earn different tokens, and the buy and burn is a feature that everyone loves as well. So it's that, I think that the conversation is easier with a more advanced crypto person, but for the GP crypto person, it's going to be like, it's going to be the most popular DApp on PulseChain. I guess. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I haven't quite come up with a great argument for why they should use PulseX yet, but I think there's going to be a ton of people who love the other dexes, and they're like, you know what? There's some good stuff going on over here. Let me get over here and see what's up. Yeah,
I mean, because you could, say that it's the DEX that's created by the same founder, but does that necessarily make it better than the other DEXs? I'm sure there will be other, DEXs with PulseChain and all the different coins on PulseChain available. So it's like, how do we speak about it in a way that shows people its value?
So you could just. Go ahead. I was going to say, you could go with that. I think that's a great way to put it. You could just be like, it's the founder's other coin, and the other coins are, and if you believe PulseChain is going to do really well, why wouldn't the other coin do really well based on heck? So you could just point to the founder and be like, it's his other coin, and then you can learn about it later. I think that's a good way to put it too.
Yeah. And I wonder, does any other DEX coin have like the features as far as like the buy and burn that PulseX has?
I don't, I haven't heard of them. I haven't, I will say I haven't actively searched out to see if, I don't think PancakeSwap has that at least. And I would have to look at the other ones. I mean, it would probably be a Google of like DEX and then quote buy and burn and then see what comes up. But I don't think, I don't know. That's a good question. I'll have to figure it out. I don't think so. Or if they do, they're not a popular one. I would say, I don't think the most popular ones have that exact feature. I'll say it like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the comments in the chat was pretty accurate. Let's see if I can see where it is. PulseX will be promoted by the numbers it will produce. So yeah, I think like he's saying, essentially PulseX will sell itself the bigger PulseChain gets, right? They're like, the identities are a little cross, right? Like you hear about them at the same breath from the same person. It's almost like PulseX PulseChain, like it's just one. So
yeah, a gateway crypto. It's have you heard of PulseX? Oh, you got to find out about PulseX now. You got PulseChain, right? Oh, PulseX. That's next level. Yeah, it could be like that. Getting them into it based on relation. Yeah.